What up? What up? What up? Hope everybody's having a great start to this holiday weekend. Um, so I got a question for you, as I often do. When was the last time you felt seen? When was the last time you really felt respected? A lot of guys, especially around this time, once we start moving into the winter, start to deal with this feeling of absence or being invisible in certain situations. I had this experience when I was moving to New York. This was some time back. I was moving to New York and was there all alone, and the winter came. And the winter is interesting. The seasons are interesting in New York because when you're in New York, the seasons create different energies. And so the fall is like this comfort, like slow down, interact, be cool type situation. The winter though is like a very isolating, cold, gray, depressive, in certain situations type of feeling, especially after the holidays. And so, as I was trying to navigate through this, I started to realize that a lot of us don't really, as men, don't really have an understanding of presence, right? And I thought it was fitting since we're going to be having young people and maybe yourself opening some presence in the near future for us to talk about the importance of understanding presence, right? How you can be present to use your presence to create a presentation in life and style. So, again, if this is your first time here, this is a step above just talking about clothes because I believe that style is way more than just clothes. It's how you walk, how you talk, how you move, and how you interact. But you have to be able to compose something that allows people to step into your world, step into your story. Because I believe every man has a story, and that story soon becomes history or his story, and it all begins with our statement and style. So I'm gonna help you do that. So I want you to think about that question, right? When was the last time you really felt seen and respected when you stepped out? And you don't have to put it in the chat, but if you want to put it in the chat, tell me when that was, what you looked like, what you felt like. You don't have to go that deep. Pause. But I want you to think through when the last time you felt like most like yourself, when you felt seen and when you felt respected. And I want you to think about what you had on, what you presented in that space, and why that may have actually been the case. What contributed to that? Um, because it's an important aspect of understanding, because those are the things that you should lean into. I have some guys who are going to say, when I was in a suit, tie, in this particular color, and a lot of guys would then lean on that because they believe that's the only way to feel seen or respected. And you may have another guy who is saying, well, I felt that same way when I was in a trucker jacket, a great pair of flannels, and a turtleneck and a pair of Chelsea boots. Right? That's a different, totally different dynamic. But it still could be something that allow people to see you. And the reason why we often have that is because that's when people are probably seeing the most authentic version of you. They're seeing the most complete and holistic aspect of who you are, depending on how you're utilizing colors, how you're utilizing patterns, how you're utilizing silhouette and shape to tell a story, right? So, what does it really mean to be present in a situation? Well, presence is about having awareness, about a energy, and then it's also about a projection, right? So a lot of guys, myself included, have found ourselves in spaces where we're not present to a situation because we're not being spatially aware. And what do I mean? You could be in a situation where it's not dangerous, right? In a dangerous situation, let me take a step back. In a dangerous situation, we always know, like, to be aware. If it's a dark alley in the middle of the night and we need to go down that to get to our car, to get to a parking lot, whatever, head is on a swivel. We're listening to stuff, we're paying attention to stuff, we're making sure we are aware of our surroundings. But we don't necessarily do that as much in social situations. So in social situations, we don't, quote unquote, read the room, right? We're just in there talking about whatever, talking to whoever, about whatever. So we're not being aware. And on the stylistic side, we're not necessarily making sure that we are aware of how we're showing up in that given situation. There have been numerous times where somebody is going to a business networking event where other companies are going to be there and they are showing up in a very stylish way because they think in network and then they hear the name of the space and so they're like, oh, I'm gonna really turn up. And that's not the place, right? They're not being aware of what it is that they want to actually to promote when they're there. When I was working for this company, was actually Xenia. It was the first time I had a corporate employment, and they were like, "Listen, we understand that you work here from 9 to 5 essentially, but when you leave here, just know that you are a representation of us. So be mindful, be aware of how you're moving in these given situations in these given places." Because you could be a reflection of us, and your bad acts could be a direct reflection or could blow back onto us here at Xenia. So be mindful about how you're moving, what you're talking about, and how you're presenting yourself, right? And so it was a great lesson for me to realize, like, yo, it's important to be aware in any and every situation that you're in. Thank God I never made them look crazy, but it could have been a possibility, right? So the next thing that you have to think about is your energy. So if we have talked about this, there is a element of masculine and feminine energy in every human being, right? You have the masculine, which is ultimately going to be about your presence, but then you have the feminine that's ultimately going to be about the energy that you project or that you end up putting out. And so if you think about it, when these two coalesce together, when they come together, Paul, right, then they create this amazing dynamic of life, of vibrance, right, of vitality. And so when you start thinking about your presence, you also want to think about the energy that you want to initiate. There's not always times where you want to be inviting or you want to be collaborative. Sometimes you want to be competitive. Sometimes you want to be uh, elevated. Sometimes you want to be in a space of leadership, right? And so it's important for you to understand the energy that you want to put out. Now you can do that through colors because each color is going to radiate a different energy. This is why a lot of guys wear blue. It's not only because that it initiates a feeling of trust, it's actually also the lowest on the color spectrum when it comes to the radiation of color in the color wheel. So when you're or in the light spectrum. So when you have a blue piece on, it's not registering the same as if you were to have something that's bright red on, which is the highest level of the color scale, and is then going to create feelings of alarm, of intensity, and potentially passion, depending on how it's worn. So even in understanding the energetic levels from a scientific standpoint allows you to then figure out how you're going to maneuver throughout the spaces and places that you find yourself in. And that's the real element of presence. If you think about it, I could be in one situation where I want to be under the radar. I want to be low key, i.e., in a business meeting, right, where partners are being met, and I am a new partner. I am a new employee, right? I can step out in a navy blue suit or a navy blue jacket in modern day society, a pair of gray pants, which are also going to convey a certain type of energy, and then also pair that with a white shirt, and I'm nondescript. But I could also be going to a celebration where somebody's going to celebrate me, or I'm going to be honored with another group of people, or we're just going out to the club and it's relatively competitive, and I can throw on a deep tomato red jacket, a nice powder blue shirt, and a pair of brown trousers in a sandy brown type of color. And it can draw attention, it can draw energy, it can create that dynamic that people are paying attention to. And in each one of those spaces, I am being aware of the energy that I am going to put out. And then lastly, the thing that we have to think about is your projection. What are you projecting? What are you promoting when you're putting out? A lot of us, when we are thinking about our style, we're not thinking about what we want to put out. When we used to go out in my younger days, not as young as I used to be, right? But in my early 20s, we would go out, and when we were going out, I used to just throw on whatever. I just knew that I wanted to look nice. And then one day, my mentor was just like, I want you to think about what you want to achieve tonight. And I was like, I'm trying not to get too drunk. Like, I don't know what I'm trying to achieve. He said, well, let's think about it. Like, what do you want to achieve tonight? And so I was like, man, I just want to get two numbers. I just want to be able to go out and vibe with two young ladies and get two numbers. And so he said, well, what would that need to look like? I was like, what you mean? I need to go up and talk to a chick, shoot my shot, see what happens. He was like, no. What does that need to look like? How do you need to present yourself in order to attract a young lady that would allow for you to have her number? And so we put together a look. And this is early 2000s, so this is when everybody used to dress like they were going to work to go to the club. Do you guys remember that? Like everybody was in suits, and like girls would be in like skirts, and then would have their button ups on. It's really great time. I miss that time. I don't go out anymore, but it was dope. So I had on this black pinstripe suit. I had on a pair of black loafers, and then I had a pink shirt on with contrast collar, white contrast collar, and then a polka dot tie. Now, in real life, a lot of guys would have said that's not gonna get you no chicks. That's not gonna get you anybody, right? You look like you're going to work. But something interesting happened that night. We were going out to kind of an industry party, and so about six young ladies complimented me because they thought that I was somebody on a level. They thought that I may have been an exec. They thought that I might have been A&R, or I was affiliated with some record label or some type of person in the industry. And so it gave me access to conversation. Now, I wasn't getting into VIP. I wasn't popping any bottles. I had to drink like everybody else. But that presentation and that intention of what I was projecting allowed for me to be in a different state. I still didn't get the two numbers, but I'm not going to even hold you, right? I got one. I got one, but I ain't get two. So it doesn't always go to plan, but it's important for you to have that projection when you're stepping out in that space, right? Um, and I love this quote when I was getting this conversation together that says, the present moment is the only moment that we have available, right? And it's the door to every other moment, right? We've heard that the past is dead. Maybe you haven't, but I was told this very young. Past is dead, and the future does not exist. So all you have now is the gift of the present. And so many of us will be projecting our intention to the door of the future, when we are stuck in the the box, right? The confinement of the past, and we miss these opportunities to just be present, just by pulling this out. I can't tell you how many times we're out at an event or out at an experience. We're going to a concert, and instead of people like singing the songs, waving their hands, they doing this, ah, da, or they're doing a selfie, like so everybody can see where they are doing the live, right? So they're not present to the moment. They are living in the projection of how everybody else is going to respond, the jealousy, whatever, the hate, the love, whatever, right? But they're not present to that moment. Zeb Kohler says, no one thought you were an athlete with your height and build. No one's confused. No one's confused me either. Um, I think maybe one or two people may have thought that I was an athlete uh, during my time. Now it's funny, like people will say, like, "Man, you look like Carmelo Anthony. Man, you look like Cam Newton." I'm like, "How do I remotely look like Carmelo Anthony?" One, but then they say like I look like Cam Newton. Cam Newton is way bulkier than me. He's a spelt brother, like living here in Atlanta, and I think Cam is almost 6'7". He's like 6'6" and a half, 6'7". I'm 6'3" and a half, maybe 6'4". So I'm like, I don't understand where you get this, but it's often because like Carmelo Anthony was a relatively stylish guy in the NBA, and so now they're saying like oh, because you guys have similar style, which we don't, that we look alike. And it's always it's never people who look like me who think that they look alike. At least not in mass. Anywho, um, so yeah, it's people have thought I was an athlete, and I was an athlete. I'm just not an athlete now. So maybe they thought I was a professional athlete. If they did, that's dope. Um, wish they'd give me some athlete money. But once we have that understanding that the present is a gift, and we start acting that way, and I still have to navigate through that myself. But once we can really do that, it really creates a powerful dynamic for how we move through life. Because life, our presence in life will amplify our relationships and our personal impact. When we're actually being present to a situation that we are engaged with, we start to see that that amplifies how people experience us. And it amplifies how we're experiencing them when we're actually listening, paying intention and attention to how they're moving and what they are saying to us. The impact that that can have on other people is profound. I mean, it really is. The moments that I've allowed myself to be present to a moment, the way that I can connect with somebody is a feeling that I want to continue to have. It can just be difficult for me to hone in on that with your phone or with things that are going on around you. I'm very easily like, what is that over there? What's that over there? So to actually have somebody that I can focus my entire attention on is a profoundly deep and dope experience. Uh, so Zell Cole said it could be worse. I could have been confused for Russell Westbrook. That is true. I do not want to be confused for Russell unless it's on the hooping side because my man can go style. No. So when we start thinking about being present, right, and that ability to focus, have you ever had those moments where, let's say you're working, because this often happens when you're working, where you just find yourself going through and like, man, I went from this, I started here, took me here, took me here, took me here, took me here, and then you look up and it's 2 or 3 hours or 4 hours have passed, and you just knocked out all of this stuff, whether it's research or writing or any of those different types of things. Have you ever been in that space where you just really get into that flow state? Well, really, that's all presence is. Or you've been in a situation where you've been talking to somebody and it feels like you guys just started a conversation and hours have passed, right? When I first really had a conversation with my wife, that was kind of the vibe that we ended up with. It was like nobody else was really around. We talked for a long time, but it didn't feel like a long time. We found ourselves in that flow state. Or when you're moving throughout the day and you're having an amazing day and it seems like you woke up and then all of a sudden it's the end of the day, right? Because you've just been enjoying the time that you've actually been in. You look back and the sun is getting ready to go down, right? These are all flow states and these are all elements that create presence for us when we are stepping out. And a lot of times we forget to just pay attention to those things. And I saw something today that actually made me think about that flow state because I have over the last probably 2 years, really the last 2 years, been feeling like, man, like time is flying by. Has has things been going by faster? Time has been going by fast for you, right? I know time has been flying by. It seems like it was just February and now we're at the end of the year. And I'm like, where did the time go? Right? Uh with the Romeo, what's going on? What's going on, sir? Hope everything is well. And I realized that part of that reasoning is because what we are having is just the consistent repetition of experiences. And I only found that out because I was listening to Weird Facts. I think that's the IG page. And it said that part of the reason why time speeds up for individuals is because there's no nuance. There's nothing new that they're experiencing. So because we're trotting through life over and over again, we feel like time is moving quick, right? And so it made me really think about us and whether or not we're being present. Are there new experiences that we have the opportunity to navigate through, even in the seemingly same spaces, right? Because I've definitely been in a flow state, just going to work, where you look up and you're getting off the exit and you're like, how the hell did I get here? Like, I just got in my car. Like, how did I get here? And part of that is because I go the same way, same route to get to work. And we don't think about the novelty of newness, even if it's just taking an alternate route to work. It may take us a little bit longer to get there, but we leave a little bit earlier. Or changing up the spaces that we go to. Instead of going to the same space for lunch, you go to a new spot. Or instead of sitting in the same space for lunch, maybe you sit outside and you just experience life in a different way, in a different dynamic. And this is why I've said for a lot of guys when I'm talking to them, we're creatures of habit. If I were to ask you or to put you in this space, it's a Friday, right? And you're going out, where are you going? Some place immediately popped into your head. What are you drinking? Right? It already immediately popped into your head. If there's food there, what are you eating? It's immediately popped into your head because we're creatures of habit and we know what we like. We are going to lean into what we like, and that's what we're going to utilize. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but it does limit our experience. It does limit our availability in presence because we're not paying attention or intention to what we're doing, right? And it's the same thing when it comes to our style. One of the things I've been challenging a lot of my clients with this this year, this past year, and we'll take it into 2025, is to continue to be present to the nuance and the novelty and the newness of your current style. So what I've been doing for a lot of guys is, let's say a guy is into a preppy style. I say, well, what does your casual look like? And when we break down the casual style, it's nothing like the preppy style that they claim to enjoy or to want to dress like. And so what I've been challenging them to do is to find the novel, find the nuance in that style, right? So what does your casual look like? What does formality look like when you're wearing those things? What does professionalism look like? And they've started to find that these little touch points allow them to be present in a way that they did not know was possible. Throwing on a rep tie with a cardigan, uh, a varsity cardigan, and a great pair of flannels with penny loafers, and putting the penny in there is a fun way for them to have some nuance, some charm when they are putting their look on and they're going out to uh, Saturday brunch. One, a lot of guys don't wear ties anymore like that, and two, it's just a unique way for them to experience the dress up of dressing down, right? And so there's nuance within that space. And there's nuance for you when it comes to your personal style if you're looking at all of those different dynamics and trying to find new ways to remain consistent with who you are. I have a homeboy, Dirty Socks. Shout out to Dirty Socks. He made this great point. He said, when somebody tries to box me in, what I like to do is I like to then take other smaller boxes and just fill up every aspect of the box, right? And if it's a cube, then you start building over, you start building back, you start building up, and you fill that entire space that people thought was confining to you, and then you move to another box because now you have a full, complete understanding of this experience, of this concept. And so now you can't box me into that because I've already filled it up with the knowledge base, the experience, the interactions, the intentions. And so now I can move to that next element, right? And this is one of the things that I encourage a lot of guys to do with their style. If you have a full understanding of your style, then you can start moving into a different genre of style that allows you to enhance what your expression is and make it even cooler because now it's mixed with something else. Del Color says yes, time is flying, and it says that because we're getting older. I think it's because time, as we know, is actually speeding up, and there's no way to measure it in our reality, or maybe not. Yes, I've heard that as well, and I do agree with that. That's a possibility. I think some astrophysicists have had that conversation as well, and that's possible. But it's also, I think there's duality here, right? I think that there's a perspective where we're just doing the same thing over and over again, and we're not necessarily paying attention to what we're doing. Hence the N was the NP non actionable player, the NCP. I forgot what the, but when most people are just going through life as automatons that were robots, that just have consciousness, but we don't do anything with it. So time is just passing us by. Uh, but I also think that time is moving a little bit faster as well. So you have that aspect, and so even though we may find ourselves in flow, and that can be a very good thing. Sometimes it's important for us to step out of flow and to be present to the newness and novelty of what is right in front of us. It doesn't have to be some crazy trip to some place that you've never been. It could just be a different route into getting to the places that you frequent, doing something that you don't normally do, stepping outside of your comfort zone in life as well as in style within the concept of the spaces that you exist in. So I want you to try this on, see how it fits you. What would happen if you did something casual, or anything that you wear casual, you reverse, or any style that you typically dress in, you reverse. So if you're typically the guy who dresses up, right, really well, you always feel confident in that. What would happen if you then made that same intention and effort to dressing down? So instead of just throwing on jeans and a t-shirt and some sneakers, you really took the time to be intentional about how you were going to step out for a casual space. And if you're on the other side where you are extremely casual, what would it then look like for you to take some time to get dressed to go out? And just experience that. Just experience the newness of people experiencing you out when you're dressed, out when you're casual, and what that does for your own energy, for your own awareness, and for your own projection, right? Because once you start doing that, then you can begin to start expanding your expression and expanding your ensembles. Like, I love this concept that I've been really utilizing with a lot of the clients that I've been working with of creating your capsule collection. And the capsule is not the end all be all to your wardrobe, but it's going to make up about 80% of your wardrobe. So there's Pareto's principle, the 80-20 rule, that says 20% of or 80% of a thing is probably going to be utilized by 20% of inertia, energy, people, and or your closet, right? So when I'm going through a lot of guys' closet and we're doing closet evaluations, what will often happen is we'll go through their closet and I'll ask them, what do you typically wear? And they'll immediately go to what works for them, what they know they like, and what can be best be utilized. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be about 20% of their wardrobe. And so when we're doing the closet clean out, we're going through and seeing what works for them, what doesn't work for them, what fits, what doesn't fit, what's damaged, or what's completely out of style and that they would never wear again. We start to consolidate a lot of their wardrobe. And interestingly enough, a lot of guys get nervous. That's when they start saying, like, dang, bro, I don't have a lot of clothes in here. And I'm like, that's perfectly fine. You weren't getting those items anyway. You only hear about 20% of, you're only utilizing about 20% of your wardrobe. And when we start going through why that is, it's because that's what they were used to. That's what they were aware of, and that's what they knew worked. And so when we start to expand their wardrobe again with that capsule, they start to say, oh, this is where I felt my biggest presence. This is where I felt most seen, right? And so if we can recreate that, if we can then duplicate that, then now I'm starting to feel seen in every other situation. And so this is why I love the capsule, because the capsule is seeking to help you find powerful presentations in your professional, social, leisure, and romantic life, right? If you can move in those different types of spaces, you're always going to show up as the sexiest person in the room, as the most powerful person in the room, and as the most intriguing person in the room, right? Those are the people that will help you yield success in that space, which is why we help men get more money, more power, more sex without saying a word, simply utilizing their style. That capsule collection is the inception to helping you develop a big part of your wardrobe. And then you got the other 20%, which may be like vacation, it may be formal, it may be something that is a little novel for any of your other interests that we can start to cultivate there. But it's important for you to have that awareness in that space. So I want you to think about, as we are going into the holiday, and we'll be opening gifts and doing all that other good stuff, and hopefully spending time with some family. And I want you to ask yourself, how will you show up differently moving forward after the day? How are you going to ensure that your presence is aware, right? That you're self aware? How are you then going to utilize that to create energy in the spaces that you're in? And what will that then project for you? Because again, as I've told you, style is way more than just clothes, right? It is the outward expression of a man's state of mind, right? It is the narrative and the story that we start to tell people. And every man has a story, or his story, right? That's going to create your history. And every day that we step out, we know that a picture's worth 1,000 words, which means you are etching or writing a page of your own narrative each day that you decide to step out. So why wouldn't you be present to it? Why wouldn't you make sure that you are utilizing those gifts to give gifts to the world, right? The world needs it, and you got something amazing to give. Taylor Bone was good, bro. So I want you to try this on, see how it fits you. If it fits you well, I want you to utilize your talents and your gifts to create some awareness, some energy, and project something dope to the world around you. And if it doesn't fit you, that's why you're in the dressing room. You can just leave it right here and go on about your business. Uh, and enjoying Christmas Eve tomorrow. With that being said, I hope that everybody has a great Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, whatever you are celebrating. That you, most importantly, enjoy the gift of family, the gift of love, of experience, and that you are really present to it, because you never know how many we have, right? We could think we got 30, 40 more years with family, but somebody said something very important. They said a lot of times when we think about family, and this could also apply to your friends or the family that's extended, right? That you weren't born with, but that you feel closest to, that a lot of times we believe that we have years with the people that we love and care about. But in truth, we really only have times. So the average person will see their parents after the age of 25, I believe, 20 times, 20 to 25 times over the rest of their lifetime. And that's usually for the holidays, um, and for a major event like a birthday, and usually a major milestone birthday. But I was thinking about, like, I haven't seen my mom on her birthday for the last 4 years, 4 or 5 years. So if you start thinking about that, you only have 25 more times to see your family. It changes your perspective, hopefully, and will make us much more present to those exchanges, to hearing their stories, to hearing their experiences, to garnering their wisdom, so that they continue to live on in us and through us and through their education and lessons that they provided for us. So just want you to try that on, see how it fits you, and be great today. But then again, you already are. So now all you have to do is show up and show out in style, remembering that dress is nothing more than the expression of a man's outward state of mind. So now all you have to do is dress to address your life and your style. That ending was terrible, but we got it out. All right. So we will see you next week. We'll still be on next week, getting ready for the new year. But we're not going anywhere. And everybody have a dope and Merry Christmas. Peace.